Elizabeth Aloni, who heads our webinar division. And we are so pleased to have a webinar tonight introducing the wonderful group of new presidents to run our Queens CUNY institutions. What an exciting time in history on many levels, but couldn't be bettered with the choices that our beloved Chancellor has made for us and has made all of you be a select group because, you know, since he was from Queens College, he gets it about Queens and how each one of you is so special to be with us. I want to say hello. I'm Victoria Schnepps, and I'm the proud president of Schnepps Media, but better known in Queens as the Queens Courier, as the Times Ledger, as Caribbean Life, as Gay City News, as AM New York Metro. And all of those media outlets will be sharing the story of tonight. Links will be available for each of you who has tuned in so that you can see it afterwards. It'll be recorded. And we're going to be able to have it shared in all of our media with wonderful articles that will, in fact, be able to have you be a part of this with your questions that will be answered. And you've got to go to our media, which are online and in print every single week and every single day. So I think, are we ready to get started, Elizabeth?
Yes, please do.
All right, so here we go. So again, I am so proud to be able to bring this to you today with the sponsorship of dear friends and the wonderful Kyriakis Kaimas, who is the Vice President and the New York Manager of Custom Computer Associates. Please tell us a little bit about the company and your connection to CUNY.
Thank you so much. We are very excited to honor and be part of this webinar and welcoming the new CUNY presidents. As a technology solution provider, we have been working with CUNY universities since 2002. So we have a long history working with the CUNY universities, and we understand the needs on the technology and the great and amazing job that you guys doing over the years. Our experience ranged from desktop deployments to network upgrades, voice over IP, and wireless and collaboration that we provide to many universities already. Most recently, actually, you guys know that during the pandemic that we have, and the issues that everybody started working from their homes and the education happening as well and got frozen. We distribute 30,000 Chromebooks on your behalf to your students, either direct to your colleges or to their using the UPS and direct to their houses as well. So we are there with you and sympathize what's going on, and we're trying to help you in any way that we can. Again, I want to congratulate you once again and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight with you guys. And if you guys have any questions or you would like to have further discussions, I will be happy to arrange that. So thank you, Vicky, for the opportunity to be part of this amazing group. Thank you so much.
And that was Custom Computer Associates. Thank you so much, Kyriakos. And now the drum roll has begun, and it is my honor, my pleasure to introduce my wonderful editor, JK, who is going to take it from here and introduce you to the new leadership of our CUNY schools. Thank you, Jake.
Thanks, Vicki. And thank you all for joining us tonight. You know, obviously, it's not often to have a panel of these distinguished guests. Tonight we're joined by Frank H. Wu, the president of Queens College, the newly appointed president of Queens College. Kenneth Adams, the President-Designate of LaGuardia Community College. Welcome. Dr. Christine Mangino, the President-Designate of Queensborough Community College. And Dr. Berenecea Johnson Eanes. I'm sorry, did I pronounce that correctly? Oh, good.
Jake, I do want to interject one thing, and I want to give a special shout out to Jay Hershenson, who helped make today possible. So thank you. God bless Jay. Hooray, hooray for Jay. Thank you, Jay.
Yeah. So I would like just to get right into it. We have about an hour together. If you could please, just a note beforehand, limit your answers to around 3 minutes. I'll be keeping time, but if you could, try and keep time internally, that would be appreciated. So just to begin, I'd like it if you could all just discuss your backgrounds and talk a little bit about kind of the journey of your career and what led you here. And I would like to begin with Dr. Eanes, if that's all right.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Thank you, everybody at Schnepps, and thank you to all of our sponsors. I want to first say that my journey is sort of interesting because I left CUNY to go to California to come back to CUNY. I've had a long career in higher education, over 25 years. But most recently, prior to being at York as the president, I was the Vice President of Student Affairs at Cal State Fullerton, an institution of 40,000 students in Fullerton, California, in Orange County. And prior to that, I was the Vice President of Student Affairs at John Jay College of Criminal Justice right here in the CUNY system. So I spent about 14 and a half years as a vice president at that level, first in CUNY and then at Cal State Fullerton. My education background in social work. I'm a group worker by training. I have a master's in social work and a PhD in social work. And I tell everyone that there are absolutely no mistakes. So every step that has been along the way has led to this step. I had a friend remind me recently that many years ago we went out for lunch and I said that one day I wanted to be a college president. So this has been a dream of mine for a very long time for these kinds of students at this kind of institution. So this is my now return to CUNY. Ironically, my closest aunt lived in Astoria, Queens all of my life. So I spent my childhood coming to Queens in the summer. And now I live in Queens, not very far from our campus. So as they say, life does come full circle. I have been working in higher ed since I was 19 years old as a upward bound tutor and then a resident assistant. So I've spent a good amount of my career either working in social work at a clinical level, teaching as a faculty member and or working in student affairs. So that's, I want to state at the time, I want to be the first very obedient panelist.
You were well under the 3 minutes.
Good. The only other thing I will say, I have two wonderful children and a wonderful husband, and we are adjusting to a transition in COVID. So it's not exactly what we had in mind for our first year back in New York, but we're pretty rugged as a group, and we're trying to do all that we can to live our COVID transition life.
Well, we'll certainly get to the COVID transition later tonight.
I'm sure you will.
Yeah. How about Mr. Wu? Would you like to talk about your background and your career journey?
Sure. Humbled to be here and just delighted. My career has been about civil rights through bridge building. In some ways, I'm an improbable college president. It's not something that I thought I would ever do. I began my career as a lawyer. I'm actually twice the age I was when I was practicing law, so it's a lifetime ago. But I was one of those people who enjoyed law school. I know you're not supposed to admit you enjoyed law school, but I did, and I wanted to relive the experience again and again. So I became a professor, and I was humbled to be able to join the faculty of Howard University. That's the nation's leading historically Black college, formed after the Civil War with a true mission, and it was to uplift recently freed slaves. It was named for a white Union general who also ran the Freedmen's Bureau, and the tradition of access for all and a real mission has continued to this day. I was the first Asian American to be a law professor there, and I realized that despite myself, I had prejudice, even if I wasn't aware of it, what we now call implicit bias, and I enjoyed privilege just walking down the street, though I faced stereotyping. To be honest, my students and my colleagues, they faced far worse, the sort of thing that we've seen in the news recently. If you're just bird watching in Central Park, people think you're a thug, a felon, someone dangerous. And that was just life-changing. And I learned it's so important to go places people don't expect you to be or where you don't expect to be. The other higher education experience that I had that really prepared me for leadership roles was being a trustee of Gallaudet University. That's the school for the deaf and hard of hearing. That really opened my eyes. When I was on campus, the interpreters were there for me because as a hearing person, I was the one who wasn't fluent in American Sign Language. I eventually gained some conversational fluency. And everyone else there was perfectly capable of carrying on discussions and social chit chat in sign language. So that led me to be Dean of the Law School at Wayne State in my hometown of Detroit, and then Chancellor and Dean of University of California, Hastings College of Law. I did not want to be a college president. I wanted to be the Queen's College president because of the diversity and the mission. We have 83 languages spoken on campus. That's just astonishing. And we truly represent the world. You all know what Queens looks like, and that's what our campus looks like, and probably all of your campuses too. So I know how important this is, and it's not just rhetoric. We have to make it real to show that higher education is the engine of the American dream now more than ever. We stand for a value proposition. We will improve your station in life, not just for you, but for the whole community. Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you. And Mr. Adams, LaGuardia Community College, you wouldn't mind going next?
Jake, thank you, and big shout out to Vicki again. Thanks so much for pulling us all together, reaching out to our mutual friend Jay Hershenson, and assembling this panel. It's a lot of fun. This hasn't happened before, really unique event. And I can say, I think on behalf of my colleagues, just a reunion for us that's very exciting, even for those of us like Christina and me we haven't started our jobs yet. We're in this transition mode about to start. So great to be here. Thank you again. And you know, Jake, I also would start by saying I don't have a traditional pathway to the role I now have as the President-Designate at LaGuardia Community College. My background really is more in economic development, government service, workforce development, job training, vocational training programs. And I'll say that, so most recently, I do come from within the CUNY system. And most recently, I served as the Dean of Workforce and Economic Development, actually where I still am, up at Bronx Community College. And I ended up there because, like my fellow president colleagues, I had this obsession with CUNY as an amazing institution and a real driver of economic mobility and of opportunity, particularly for low-income students, for immigrants, and for people who didn't have a more, let's say, traditional pathway to higher education as I had. So I was fascinated with CUNY and very, very fortunate that I was able to get a job at Bronx Community College, where I, again, have spent the last 4 years or so forming partnerships with New York City employers, developing internship programs, workforce development programs, programs to reach students from around the Bronx that were not otherwise coming to BCC. And then also working a lot with the department chairs and program directors, staff and faculty of at BCC, something like 53 degree programs, always with an eye on a couple of things, particularly pathways, educational pathways for students that really provide a roadmap to eventually a good job at a living wage and a life full of choices and continuing education. So community colleges to me represent something, Jake, really, really important, which is they are the gateways into the CUNY system for so many students, and the gateway or the welcome mat to an educational pathway at the end of which one can get, again, a good job and be an active participant in our evolving economy. So what happened just a little more before I run out the clock here. I had worked, as Vicki and others know, for Governor Andrew Cuomo. I had 2 positions in his administration. I was the commissioner of the New York State Department of Economic Development in his first term. Later, I was the tax commissioner. I'll confess to all of you, I really didn't want to spend the rest of my days collecting taxes from you all. But I did that, and in that work got to know SUNY and CUNY presidents all across the state because we formed partnerships for the state's economic development with many SUNY and CUNY schools. And I became fascinated in particular with community colleges. And so then again, when I left state service, I was fortunate to get an opportunity in CUNY and at Bronx Community College. And from there pursued this opportunity at LaGuardia, which I am thrilled and honored to have. Again, don't start until mid-August, but I have spent the last several weeks actually starting to get to know my colleagues in the staff, the administration at LaGuardia. And every meeting I have is a reminder, Vicki, a reminder, Jacob, of just the great talent at all our schools, the very, very special people, especially the faculty and the staff in particular at LaGuardia. So I'm excited about this. I'm meeting some wonderful people. I'm getting a lot of insight into things we have to work on. And I think I know it'll come up in the program, Jake, but all of us face some interesting challenges, to be polite about it, just because of obviously coping with online education, COVID, and the economic recession we're suffering across the city. So lots of work to be done. The timing for all of us, I don't think any of us planned it quite this way, like Berenecea was saying with respect to her family's move. But we'll figure it out because CUNY has this long history. Our students have incredible resilience. Our faculty and staff have that resilience, that energy, and their devotion to our students and their student success is just unbelievable. So again, it's a great opportunity. I'm excited. I know my colleagues are excited. I'm excited about working with all of them. And with Vicki's help, getting to know Queens even better. She knows I'm at heart of Brooklyn. I'm born a Brooklyn guy. At heart becoming a Queens person, Vicki. And with Schnepps Media, we'll make all those connections thanks to you all. Those of us like myself that get to know Queens better, thanks to Vicki and the team at Schnepps Media. So looking forward to all of that. Thank you, Jake.
Thank you. And lastly, Dr. Mangino.
Thank you. Thank you, Vicki and Kyriakos, for making this happen. Similar to Berenecea, my first degree is in hotel restaurant management. I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I went to a community college, and it was within the walls of the community college that I realized, no, that really wasn't my field. I wanted to become an educator, and I wanted to do what the faculty in the school was doing. I realized that I had a love for learning and a passion for education. So from there, I had moved on to Hofstra University and have a degree in elementary education and English. And I started out in Jamaica Estates teaching 2 to 5-year-olds in an early childhood center, and then moved on to Brooklyn to teach 3rd grade for the Department of Education, and still knew at some point I wanted to get back into to be able to do college teaching. So I became a faculty member at Ostos Community College. I fell in love with college, our students, and the mission of a community college again. So I've been there for 16 years as a faculty, a department chair, associate dean, and then for the last 5 years as the provost and vice president for academic affairs. And when I was getting my doctorate, I said, I wanted to be just the best teacher I could be. So I really searched hard to find a doctoral program that focused on teaching, because I did not want to become a principal of a school, and I didn't want to do administration. But as I moved up at Ostos, you keep realizing the bigger impact you could have on students and students' education by taking on those advanced administrative roles. And this past year, I had the honor of participating in the Aspen Presidential Fellowship for Community College Presidents, and spent a year really, learning from community college presidents across the country that have really transformed their institutions, focusing on success and equity and economic mobility. And I realized this was the right time. And Queensborough excited me for their, they have the same passion for academics and the faculty on their teaching and on their research and the staff. So from what I've also, like Kenneth, I've been meeting with people over the last couple of weeks and realized that, more and more this is an amazing fit, and we're going to do some really exciting things together.
Great, thank you. So as all of you have, touched upon, this is, a very challenging time to take over a major educational institution. We're in the midst of a pandemic. And we have already begun to feel sort of the economic consequences of that pandemic, and will likely continue to feel them for years, if not a decade to come. So I'd like it if you could talk a little bit about your mission and your vision for your respective schools, but also tying into that how the current moment may have sort of shaped those ideas. And let's go snake order. So Dr. Mangino, let's begin with you.
I think you hit upon it. The first priority is obviously the safety of the community, the college community, the Queens community, New York City. And then how do we prepare the best we can, which we have been, to continue to provide a quality education for the students in the fall semesters. So making sure that, faculty understand the best pedagogy and teaching strategies for an online environment, that our student support services are ready to continue providing services in a remote environment. How do we help the community of Queens rebound from the pandemic and the economics? How do we work to just figure out how do we help retool, workers who have been displaced so that they can get back out into the workforce? How do we find, employment opportunities for our students once they are ready to graduate? And then, further down the line, continuing with, increasing student success, their graduation rates, reducing the academic achievement gaps for students. And again, focusing on economic mobility. Queensborough has an array of degree programs to really help students, have a foot out the door to do better in their lives and their economy. And then again, my mission is always about student success and access. We accept students where they are when they come to our doors. How do we make sure that they are successful with us and that we provide them the tools so that they can reach their goals, whether it's educationally, moving on to a 4-year degree with our colleagues at York and Queens, or to go directly into the workforce.
Thanks. And Mr. Adams?
Thank you, Jake. The enrollment question now is really interesting. And I think there's still a little bit of mystery out there in terms of what's going to happen. There's good news on the one hand, which is, for the most part, across the CUNY system, our summertime enrollment for campuses with summer sessions, brief semesters, and so on, is actually up compared to last year. So what's going to happen in the fall? First day of class is late August, and actually LaGuardia, we're on a slightly different schedule, so we don't start until September. But the generally enrollment's looking pretty good, but there's a very interesting question. If you think about it, there are 1,100 community colleges in the U.S. with about 13 million students, almost the same number of students that attend four-year colleges, senior colleges. And across the country, we have this very special mission to help our communities recover economically, as Christine pointed out, and to make sure the folks who have lost their jobs because of COVID can get the training they need to get back to work, whether that's a short-term industry credential or a degree program, an AAS, in our case, an AAS program, a more occupational program, or a transfer program to move on to a baccalaureate degree at, let's just say, Queens College, of course. So the interesting thing about enrollment is, across the country, when you look at the data, when there's a recession, it's a little counterintuitive. When there's a recession, often community colleges see an uptick in enrollment because people need to get training and skills. And when there's a really strong economy, as there was right before COVID, when nationally we were at 3.5% unemployment, right? Almost basically an economy of full employment. Well, community college, guess what? Community college enrollment was on the decline. People were getting jobs. Maybe they felt like they could work and they didn't need to get that degree. So there's generally the view is a recessionary economy will actually boost enrollment of community colleges. But this time, I'm concerned could be different, because the economic devastation is so severe in New York City. Over 1 million people out of work. Many low-wage workers who prior to COVID had service industry jobs have lost those jobs. And our students and their families across Queens and across the city are really hurting financially. And frankly, I'm sorry to say this, but I don't think we've seen the bottom of this economically, and we haven't seen the full impact of it, because people are still receiving, in many cases, the extra $600 bump in their unemployment benefits. That's going to go away soon, unfortunately. It looks like, another program you can do on what's going on in Congress. But the economic impact of this could be so severe that students are forced, as Christine said, to look for work and can't come to school. So we've got to do everything we can to engage and support our students, to bring them back, to make sure all of our returning students are indeed returning, and that we provide them with the support they need to get them enrolled. We're doing this at BCC, we're doing this at LaGuardia. So take care of the students we currently have, and then reach out and find new ways to bring students in who need that education, training, or degree, so they can reconnect with the New York City economy. So we're facing some very serious headwinds, and I think still some unanswered questions about what's going to happen with enrollment.
Thanks. Mr. Wu, how can you talk a little bit about your mission and your vision and how the current moment might be affecting that?
Sure. Feel free to call me Frank or President
Oh,
Frank.
okay, I'll call you Frank. Mr.
So-
President Frank.
Yeah. So my friends who know I've taken this job, they say, "Oh, this is a terrible time. You know, what an awful challenge." I say, no, it's the exact opposite, because we have a clear external threat. It's unprecedented. I didn't cause it. You didn't cause it, but we have to figure out how to step up to this, and we have a responsibility. So you couldn't ask for a better way to start, in some sense, and to bring people together. That's the other aspect of this. There are more than one demagogue out there who just wants to divide the world, whether it's about coronavirus or social justice issues. They just want to pit people against one another about symbols. And if you don't do that, if you emphasize cooperation, if you talk about adaptation and resilience for individuals and institutions, if you just model rational behavior, wearing a face mask, you know, the elbow tap instead of shaking hands, social distancing, I figure you're demonstrating pretty good leadership. When we meet, which won't be for a while, so I make it clear to folks, we're 99% online. We are not rushing to open, but when we meet, I will have a face mask on, and we're not going to be shaking hands, hugging, doing anything like that, not for a long time to come. And that's rational behavior, and we have to model it. My sense is, people ask, well, when are we returning to where we were? We won't. We will bounce, not back, but forward. Time only moves forward. And, you know, I would rather we be in person. For any of us who grew up as digital immigrants, we like face-to-face, real contact in the same space. Yet, this format allows us to do things we wouldn't otherwise be able to do. You can actually get more people to attend events on this format. And I've been having family reunions, college reunions, all sorts of things. That's good, because the alternative there isn't in person. The alternative is not doing it at all. Now, why do I mention that? Because higher education needed a nudge, and this is one big nudge into this world of technology. You know, in many of our classrooms in every discipline, if you were an alum from 50 years ago and you walked in the classroom and sat down, some of the terms would have changed, but more or less the pedagogy, the teaching was about the same. Well, what other line of human endeavor can you think of where things haven't adapted to the internet? So this is much needed. We will move forward. It's about adaptation. And CUNY, every one of our schools is well situated. You know, what I say to people, and we can back this up not just with compelling stories, but statistics as well. Both are needed, both the narrative that tugs at the heartstring and the hard data for people who want to look at dollars and cents. This is not charity. You invest money into any of our schools, you get that money back. It's not just a good investment for the individual, it's a good investment for the whole community. Why? Because we all rank high on social mobility. And I won't hesitate to say there's some rankings we're low on. I found an article from the 1980s that said, Queens College, not a party school. I thought, all right, you know, I am fine with that. If you want to play beer pong, don't come here. This is not a beer pong campus, all right? And that's become apparent, because when you look at private schools that charge 10x what we charge, and not just 10x, when you take into account financial aid, some of them are charging 20 times what we're charging. It's no wonder that all of us have seen our enrollment go up dramatically for the summer, and we're looking CUNY-wide for the fall as well. Why? Because this is about value. It's about the real core. It's about, you want to move up in the world, come to one of our schools. You want to play beer pong, there are other places, other times you can do that. And we have an important role. We're not just places where research and teaching is done. We are major employers. We will help rebuild. It's not days and weeks. It is months and years. People need new skills, and we have to play that role. So to my friends, I say, I'm excited. I'm genuinely excited that despite all the bad news, that if we're strategic, if we're smart, and we socially distance, we will do great things together.
Thanks, Frank. And Dr. Eanes.
Thank you. So just a couple of things. At your college, the values are integrity, diversity, intellectual discovery, intentional interactions, self-reflection, accountability, and civic engagement. Your college was founded on the very energy that is what we have to have right now. So I could not be more proud to be there at this time. One of the things that we've been talking a lot about is our new strategic plan. We just finished a strategic plan that was started prior to my arrival, but we had a great year during my interim time where we had a lot of open forums and discussions, full of collaboration, cross-campus conversations. Prior to COVID, we had 4 or 5 town halls where people just came and gave feedback. So we have a solid plan, and we should not give up that plan. We're excited about it. So I have the luxury and the pleasure to have worked for more than one college president that taught me that a strategic plan is not a binder on a shelf. It is a living plan that you help people mobilize around. So we have some real goals we're really excited about. But with that in mind, the COVID piece is the nuance is that we now have to help our campus do some things very strategically to pivot. And first and foremost, we have to acknowledge the amount of grief and trauma that is going on, right? Real grief, real loss, right? And help our families and our students, staff, and faculty, everyone who has been impacted, digest that and figure out what they need to be okay, their new daily routines, right? And then secondly, we need to look for areas of efficiency and innovation, because really, when you get in the space where things get more thin and resources are harder to come by, you have to be innovative and you have to be efficient. President Wu and I are talking already about potential collaborations for our future for us to work together. He and I are ambitious in the fact that we want to hold down this corner of Queens for the senior colleges for sure, and work together and do all that we can. If there are places that we can do things well together, we want to do that. I think efficiency, innovation, and pivot, right? Pivot. Your college has the principles built into its life fiber already. Our students are positioned in this community, particularly to make sure that everyone is okay on the other side. But the reality of it is that in a place where we have to watch our enrollment numbers, we have to watch the integrity of our academic programs, we have to watch the commitment to closing the opportunity gap and retention. Retention means that students come and they stay until they graduate. They don't stop out, they don't drop out. These years ahead of us will be the hardest in that way, right? Because there will be all kinds of reasons that you could imagine to stop and maybe not continue. So I have been asking my campus to make data-driven decisions connected to the strategic plan with the understanding that we are dealing with trauma, drama, and grief all at the same time on a daily basis, and trying to figure out that flexibility, right? That little like places you have to be more flexible and be more nimble, because most people are doing the best that they can. So I think that we have a fantastic opportunity at York, and we're ready.
So I know we've been talking big picture, but if we could just like get a little more granular talking about, what does the, first day, first week of school look like? What sort of precautions are put in place? What is the average life at school for a student or for a faculty member? Frank, let's begin with you, if that's all right.
Sure. So we just went through a massive process. I think my colleagues here did as well, identifying every single course. We went through all of them and what needed to be hybrid. So I can tell you we have 0 in-person classes and fewer than 1% are hybrid classes. So what can people expect on day 1? They can expect to be doing this. The hybrid classes are in arts and sciences. So there are some things that are important to do. We want to support our students. You can't do it effectively on a virtual platform. So there are some classes like that, labs, they have to come in, they have to run some experiments. We do have some scientists. But what can you expect? You can expect the content, the quality, the education delivered by, and I'm going to use sort of a bit of jargon, a different modality. And we're now looking at how do we do everything else? How do we offer the student activities fair, where all the groups, the affinity groups, and everyone else says this is what we have to offer, and they talk to the incoming students. We looked at Welcome Day. So in the past, we had a confetti cannon. Well, we're not spending money on a confetti cannon, even separate from the pandemic. I've decided that's not an expense we need to have. But it turns out for 99 cents, you can get an app that has confetti come down when you're on something like this. So we're going to spend 99 cents and have confetti in a virtual format. So we're going to try as much as possible, not just to port over things. You know, that's one way you can just try to do. You can just take your lecture notes and just be a big talking head on the screen. No, we're putting all our faculty through our Center for Teaching and Learning courses, because there are actual techniques, and sometimes people don't believe that, but there are ways you can do this better, and I'll need to do that myself. And some of the things that we might have scoffed at before, you know, for some students, maybe they have an auditory disorder, a speech impediment, they're a little shy and uncomfortable. This works better for them. So there are actually people for whom this delivery of the content really works. So it's all about adaptation. And what can you expect? You can expect us to be 99% online.
Thanks. Mr. Adams?
Yeah, thanks. Let's think about that. Wow, first day of classes for us. Like the rest of my friends on this, in this meeting, on this webinar, and really all across CUNY, as Frank has said, that first day is going to largely be online. You know, something like 90% or more of all CUNY classes this fall will continue to be online, with very few exceptions made and only under the strictest of safety protocols that are really guided by the state and by health and safety regulations from CUNY. So as Frank had pointed out, that means at LaGuardia, we are applying now. There's a whole process you go through to get your classes approved for in-person. For the same set of things, in healthcare, for example, and as Frank mentioned, you've got classes in, for example, graphic design that require access to very sophisticated computers most students don't have at home. You've got healthcare training. You know, our third largest program at LaGuardia is our nursing, our AAS in nursing. Very big and successful program. There are aspects of nursing clinicals and nursing lab work you must do in person. We have an EMT training program at LaGuardia. Very important program for Queens. You know, in the news today, as you guys have reported, we've got people who are leaving from the EMT job, retiring. They had such a hard time dealing with COVID and a whole host of reasons. So there's a demand for EMTs. We train EMTs, but guess what? Again, a hybrid model, as Frank says, we can do some of the training online, but we must get those EMT students to campus for the final portion of their hands-on training. And that's true in community colleges. I see Christine agreeing, you know, shaking her head, where we have occupational training programs where we do as much as we can online, but at the end of the day, some of the instruction has to be in person because of equipment, primarily access to labs, access to technical equipment and support. So a very small percentage of our classes at LaGuardia will, I believe, get the consent to do that. But Jake, just the way this works out, still a lot of, the vast majority of our instruction of our classes will be online. Just quickly, you know, at LaGuardia, we've got close to 18,000 degree-seeking students, another 16, 17,000 continuing ed students. It's a very big school. So when I say that nursing is our third biggest program, we've got 5 or 6 programs with over 500 students enrolled in those degrees. They're very large programs. So this affects a lot of students. One thing to think about, and down the road, if there's time, maybe others can comment on this. I'm getting to the point where I'm concerned. Well, I'm always concerned. Christine pointed this out. We've got to make sure we provide all the staff, all the training and support to students as well as faculty to make the online experience work. Again, support for students too, and access to and instruction on how to make the technology work. But there's such a thing, I don't know if any of you sense this yet, called Zoom fatigue. This can get to be a lot. This can get to be tiring. And I worry about that because our students had to do this in the spring semester. Returning students are about to go through it again. And we're going to have to find ways, of course, we use Blackboard and other platforms, not just Zoom, but we're going to have to work with faculty and bring in IT and bring in resources to resist that fatigue and keep it interesting, keep it meaningful for students, keep their attention and manage that, keep that engagement, make it as fun as possible. Ditto for, as Frank pointed out, all the extracurriculars, the clubs, not a lot of sports going on right now, except Major League Baseball, and some other sports under these bubbles, but CUNY's not doing that, right? So how do we help students have some of the other aspects of a college experience online? Clubs online, cooking classes online, yoga online. We've got to make it fun. We've got to engage students and make it meaningful and rewarding. So a lot of challenges moving forward for the fall semester, but we're going to figure it out.
Thanks. Dr. Eanes, if you could go next. And I'd just also like to add, I was thinking going forward, obviously there's a lot of planning that's going into, the coming semester and possibly the semester after that. But, if both you, Dr. Eanes, and Dr. Mangino could add, do you see this as something that continues into the future? Online classes kind of here to stay, or are you hoping to implement them in the future?
So I want to revisit a comment that my colleague, President Wu, mentioned, that there's nowhere but forward, so we can't go back. And to some extent, I think that all of our realities will be adjusted with a new virtual, a new amount of things being done virtually. But what I will also say is that we will hopefully, in the right environment when it's safer and when we're not in the same situation possibly, we will be able to adjust forward to whatever our designated hybrid realities are, depending on the campus, right? I think that people still want to be in the classroom with the students, and they want to have person-to-person instructions, and that would be our greatest hope no matter what, right? No matter what. But we also know that for the time being, the nimble part and the pivot part is that we're going to have to, at each semester, take stock and make whatever decision has to be made for the safety of the students and for the safety of the community. With that said, I think that one of the opportunities that we have to continue to look into is the equity proposition for those of our students who were asking to be virtual, who do not live in situations where it is this most simple to have devices. What we've learned, Ken, about this Zoom fatigue is that we also had a whole group of students in the spring that couldn't even have the fatigue because they were now living in living spaces with their families, where many people had not all been home at the same time in years, right? This is New York City. By virtue of the way that people live here, many families, they move on these schedules, right? Where everybody had their own space because everybody's doing something. Everybody's busy. As soon as you put everybody in the house and then you told, our students, I want you to sit there in a quiet place and be getting instruction for how many hours, that's where we're not quite there around making sure that we are accommodating and taking care of that. But I think that we may be doing better in the fall, because I tell people, my team right now, we were in COVID crisis in the spring. Going in the fall, you need to be in COVID maintenance. Like, this is it. This is what we do now. So it's a very different, I think, planning opportunity we're trying to use the summer. I have 16 working days until my fall semester. So in my life, that's like nothing. When you all get to know me more, I always know all my deadlines. How many Sundays do I have to commencement? How many Fridays do I have until my kid's birthday? So that's my thing. So 16 working days is what we have to make sure that our faculty are ready, and they actually do pivot, right? To not having don't pay for the confetti gun, right? Don't do all these little, it seems like minutia, but it's going to change their experience in a really dramatic way. And at the end of the day, what I ask my team is, what is the desired outcome? When we start any conversation right now, what is the desired outcome? What are we trying to do? Because it can get a little clear as mud. And we know what mud is like, right? When you get, so just trying to keep clear on what our desired outcome is for the York College students and the York community is really the work that we're trying to do.
And Dr. Mangino?
So as you've heard, most of our courses also will be online, and so will all of our student support services. So advisement and tutoring and counseling, and CUNY has been providing over the summer training for all advisors across the system on how do you do advisement sessions in an online world. Certain things will be on campus, essential services such as our food pantry, so that students have access to that. And I think, as everyone said, how do you build community? Over the spring semester was really about survival, but now we need to make sure that, how do students have a connection to the college, to their faculty, and create friendships with other students in classes so that they have as true experiences going to college as they can. And then I think to answer your question, Jacob, about, will this change the courses that are offered in the future? Absolutely. I think, CUNY has struggled for a while trying to figure out how do we offer degree programs if we don't have the services in an online environment. But we figured out we can do that, right? And do it really effectively. So we can definitely offer additional courses. And I think it helps with the space issue that so many of us have on our campus. And also for student scheduling, where, we want them to take a full load, but they have so many other obligations at certain times that they can't take classes as when we offer them. So offering them in an online environment gives students additional opportunities. When I was a faculty at Ostos, we had created the first online degree program for community colleges in early childhood, and we had a 23% increase in our enrollment in our programs. Students need those type of opportunities. And right now our admissions office is still, working virtually so that students can still apply. Financial aid services, students can still get help filling out their FAFSA and, virtually at QCC. So we're still, there's still time for students to apply. 16 days till classes start, we can still accept incoming students.
Terrific.
Thank you. For the sake of time, unfortunately, we are going to move into our last question. Well, it's not so much a question. I was hoping that you all, well, it's likely that you have students watching right now, faculty members watching right now. And I would like it if you could just share a message to your students and to your faculty. Mr. Adams, we'll begin with you.
Thanks, Jake. And if I don't get to say it again, because you all give me the hook, big thanks again to Vicki and to Schnepps Media for doing the webinar and getting us all together. This has been a lot of fun. We should do it again sometime. My message would be, first of all, just a huge thank you to our faculty and our staff who have really made so far this transition to online learning and the coping and the pivot, as Berenecea called it, have made it work for our LaGuardia students. It's so much work. It's very stressful. People have suffered and are suffering because of COVID. So, I just first have to say thank you so much for working so hard under such difficult circumstances to deliver on the promise of LaGuardia to our LaGuardia students. And let's keep up the good work moving into the fall. I'll do everything I can to, muster the support and work with all of you at LaGuardia to continue to serve our students and a growing number of students as we move forward. And to the students, and I did a fun event with a student not long ago, one of these, Zoom meetings where the student interviewed me. I mean, our students are just fantastic, and they have already figured out most of this, and we will continue to support them. And with the advising and with all of the support services that my colleagues have mentioned, the CUNY schools are great in the sense that we have these services for our students. And they have just got to keep moving forward with the eye on the future. We really do have fantastic programs. Our students will continue, they'll move ahead. They will transfer to Queens College and other senior colleges and get their baccalaureate degree. They will join the evolving post-COVID workforce of New York City. And the promise of LaGuardia is as alive and as thriving and as hopeful as it ever was. And we're just going to have a great fall, I promise.
Thanks. Dr. Mangino?
So I think to the QCC students, as they get to know me, you're going to learn that your success will always be at the heart of our efforts. I want to encourage you each to stay, focused on your studies and on track towards your degree. What you're learning at Queensborough will have a great impact on your future and the future of the communities that we live in. And then to our faculty and staff, it is a privilege to do what we do every day. And having met many of you over the last few weeks, I know you recognize and appreciate that as much as I do. And there are few moments more rewarding in life than knowing you have accomplished something so significant as earning your college degree. And we owe it to every one of our students, especially during these times, to do all we can to help them earn their degrees. And then I look forward to all of us working together to further strengthen Queensborough's premier reputation as a leader in higher education and to continue our proud tradition of a campus whose ethnic and cultural diversity nourishes and strengthens the communities that we serve. So I'm looking forward to starting.
Thank you. And Dr. Eanes?
So let me first say to the faculty, staff, and students of York, thank you. An immense plea for gratitude and gratefulness for your welcome, but also just for everything that you do for each other and you have done before I got here and from now on, and you will. We live in very interesting times. I don't take it for granted that I am the granddaughter of a woman with a second-grade education who picked cotton in real life. She was the daughter of a sharecropper. It was not a mythical thing. It was a real thing. I keep a cotton stalk in my office. All of my sisters and I, we keep cotton stalks in our office in a very pretty vase for a reason, because the reminder is that you can go from there to where I am right now. And all of our students have their own particular brand of dream. All we have to do is put them in the space and give them the resources and help them make their way. So to my faculty, thank you for what you've already always done forever for all the students at York College, and for faculty and staff. And for the students, don't be discouraged, because the muscles that you are gaining now, they will come in handy someday again. As I try to counsel my mentees and my children and people that I come in contact with, you never know. I know right now it seems this is the worst, but you never know what we're getting prepared for. And the reality of it is that a higher education transforms the life of every student and their family. So as long as they see the value proposition of what the outcome is, then we will be okay for them to keep going. As long as we can make sure that they see that the outcome is real and that there is a job and there is a profession. We live in times where higher education is being questioned in a way that is very serious. Higher education is the social justice conversation of our time. People would have us think that if you go to college, it's a waste of time. It's not going to help you. We in CUNY dispel every bit of that, particularly in these times where we are looking at a very interesting conversation in our world around diversity, equity, and inclusion. In CUNY and at York, we dispel the fact that higher education is not a real transformer. And that is what we're going to hopefully go into this year doing.
Okay.
And lastly, Frank?
My message to our students is you all belong, every one of you, regardless of your background, your social status, whether you thought you could do this, whether others doubted you. We're here for you, each and every one of you, regardless of race, religion, color, creed, sexual orientation, disability. And, you know, a lot of places, almost all, not all, but almost all institutions of higher education will tell you that. You look at their website, they're all talking about these issues. I don't know about the rest of you, but every day, even now, I get an email from some company bragging about, oh, we support Black Lives Matter. And I think, you know, where were you yesterday? And then some of these companies, they get called out, you've probably read the stories, on social media, because then their employees who are African American and other people of color, Latinx, others, come out and say, well, that's just, you know, some marketing firm wrote that for you. That here's the reality. And I'm determined not to do that. And as I meet people at Queens College, I realize I'm surrounded by students, faculty, staff, alumni, to a person, and this is true of all the CUNY schools. They're honest strivers. They are not pretentious. They were not born with privilege. Many of them have achieved so much, but they did it through hard work and dedication and the skills that they acquired at our schools. It's just humbling, the lack of attitude they have compared to, I'll be honest, some of the other places that I've taught, and not to diss any place else, but this was the school that I was always meant to be at. So we're here for the dreamers. We're here for newcomers to this nation, the first generation students, the people whose parents don't speak English. And we're here for also, I want to lift up, for some people, this narrative, when we talk about diversity and immigrants, it's not compelling for them because their ancestors came in bondage. And it's important to understand that too. There was a great migration a century ago of African Americans from the deep South to the North, much of it throughout New York City now. And we're now in the third generation. And that is not just part of diversity. That historic struggle for Black equality frames so much else of what we've been able to accomplish. So my message is, we are here for all of you, and we mean that, and I want you to hold me to that. So there might come a time when I regret having said this, but we need to walk the walk. And I didn't always have a fancy title and a role such as this. I've been on the other side of marches and protests, and if the marchers and protesters invite me, I would be happy to join them. So we're here for you. We have to cooperate. That's the only way. Higher education right now, public higher education, it's like face masks. When I'm wearing a face mask, that's really, it's protecting me a little bit, but the person it's really protecting is you. I do it with the expectation you'll reciprocate, and that's the social contract. Somewhere along the way, we lost that ideal of a common good, a shared good. That's what CUNY represents, and that's what we have to make a tangible reality for our students.
Fabulous. I just want to thank you. My chest is bursting with joy at all of your connectivenesses. And I think as presidents, you are reflecting everything you've just said. Jake, thank you so much for sharing this and having these wonderful, wonderful representations of our CUNY system and our colleges here in Queens. I'm going to do a commercial to Mrs. Presidents, and that is that our company loves interns. As a former teacher, my best experience was student teaching. And so we have internships available in every aspect of the company, from writing to selling, to design work, to digital, to events. We are there for you. We love that one of our leaders of our event team is a Queens College graduate who started as an intern, Tony Cimino. So she is the epitome of what all of you are talking about today. And I am so grateful to have you here. And thanks to the auspices of Custom Computer Associates. Thank you, Kyriakis. Thank you for representing the company and representing all of us. Thank you all. Have a great night. And I will tune in to Queens Courier. You're going to see a queenscourier.com article. Tune into Times Ledger. You're going to see a timesledger.com article. Tune into AM New York Metro. You're going to see it there. Tune into Caribbean Life. You're going to see it there on CaribbeanLife.com and Gay City News and GayCityNews.com. So all of you, thank you for your time. Thank you for joining us. And we look forward to many years of great success with your fabulous leadership. We are part of your dream. Thank you for tonight. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you.